Welcome to the Sonic Shaman Show, home of the Coffee Connect and Conscious Connections. The show is dedicated to empowering you to perceive, know, be, and express your unique voice in this world without the fear of judgment of others through healing, coaching, and educational services. In each episode, Hank and his guests offer tools, techniques, and inspiration to help you step into your potency. Now, here is your host, Hank Setala.
Welcome and good morning, everyone. This is the Power of Possibilities, where we discuss the tools of access consciousness. And with me, as you already know probably, is Heather MacMillan, who's a certified facilitator of access consciousness. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I thought what a wonderful question to start off with was, or not question, what a wonderful topic for today is to be the question, because that's really what started access consciousness. So all the way back when Gary was asking, what would I like my life to look like? And then starting to allow the process to unfold by asking a question and following the energy.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so Hank just mentioned Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, and it's one of my favorite things to talk about in the Access Bars class is the story of how Access and these tools came to be in the world. And it's the section called "It All Started with a Question."
And there's just even from my own experience, for those of you who don't know, locally I used to run an expo every year. And that expo all started with me and Melissa asking a question. If we were to start an expo, where would it be? And we started to follow the energy, who to call, where to have it, and all these things. And it just unfolded, because one of the key things in Access is you don't ask a question to get an answer. You ask a question to gain an awareness. And with that awareness, you then make a choice.
Yeah, and a question always empowers us. And an answer disempowers, because you're coming to a conclusion and a judgment instead of staying in that space of, wow, like, what would be fun today? Like, what else is possible I haven't considered?
Oh, we have someone just checking in. Good morning, Mark. So happy that you are connecting with us. I know Mark was thinking about joining us this weekend. Hopefully things have worked out. I think I'm supposed to call you. I'll call you afterwards, Mark, once I get the kids out the door and touch base with you and whatnot. And yeah, so the question is so potent. And in tropical, everybody knows I'm kind of a science nerd. I do a lot of the sound healings, and I love these bridging modalities that kind of show the science and bridging into the more esoteric or the more just conscious realms. And one of the things that they've shown with topographical brain mapping is that when you ask a question to the brain, it engages it completely differently. So if you're saying, for example, like an affirmation, all life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. It's wonderful. Asking a question, how does it get any better than this? When you engage the question, it engages the brain differently. And
wow.
They started to even, anyway, you can nerd out on it. People can look up the topographical brain mapping, but know that if you're looking in the mirror and you're asking yourself, how does it get any better than this? What else is possible? It's engaging the brain differently. And looking in the mirror, they show that you start to associate what you're looking at with what you're saying. So if you're saying all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory, or how could life come to me with ease and joy and glory, if you wanted to pose it as a question, it's engaging the brain completely differently and creating so much more.
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying that, I'm like, wow, what would it take for all of life to come to us with ease and joy and glory? And that's all of life. Like, we've talked about this before on the show, the good, the bad, the ugly, what would it take for all of it to come to us with ease and joy and glory?
Glad you mentioned that, because I was just thinking about Dain just a couple weeks ago, 1 week ago now. It seems like so much longer. They have Global Foundation where every year, one reason Access has grown so much is every year they completely reinvent themselves. Imagine if every year we took a look at the government and took a look at the way the world worked and said, based on the changes of the world, what would create the most of the world this year? And scratch everything and recreate it. That's what Access does. And that's one reason why it's so on the cutting edge of consciousness. That's the actual program in Access. Anyway, I lost my train of thought with that.
Well, I mean, that's such an amazing question of what would it be like if the whole world functioned on this creative edge of consciousness that Access Consciousness is willing to be, where no two class or session is ever the same. It's always based kind of how we've been creating these podcasts is just in the moment with the energy, with the flow, with the questions. I mean, we'll have a topic and then we'll just go from there and create and create. And wow, what would it be like if our government had that?
Yeah. And what about just your life? And what about relationships? Like, this is a theme throughout Access, like in every single moment, like every day with your wife or your partner or your friends. Destroy and uncreate everything that your friendship and relationships were. So there is no past data skewing future possibilities. And that's really what it is. You're getting rid of all the past data that would taint what you would choose in the moment, because your ego tries to relate away the possibilities that you could choose. At least that's my interpretation of it. I might be using non-Access speak for that, but that's the crux of it. Is that's what happens, is your ego only knows past data, but all possibility is future. So the ego can't perceive it. The being can, and that's where it's so useful to get rid of all that stuff that the ego would want to manipulate you into choosing something that isn't necessarily the greatest possibility.
Yeah, I mean, that's where this question that's in, the Access Foundation class, it's in a lot of the books, is who am I today? And what grand and glorious adventures am I going to have? It's really being in that question of, well, what if the past isn't relevant? What if, this isn't relevant? What's relevant is what I'm creating and choosing today. So what would I like to create and choose?
And speaking of questions, if you guys have questions or comments, you can go ahead and make them. We'd love to interact with you with whatever's coming up in your world. We're streaming today till 7:20 at the latest, because that's when I have to wake up my kids for school. But, these little 15 to 20 minute streams are so great, because it gives you just enough to start your morning while you make your coffee or your tea. Like, I got my delicious white tea with, I think it has blueberry in it as well. It's so good. Ooh. But anyhow, what questions do you have, if any? Otherwise, let's see, where we can take our conversation. There's 4 questions in Access, that anything that comes up in your world, that you can use these 4 questions to kind of look at it and see what you can create. And those, I think you'll remember them easier than me. What is this?
What do I do with it? Can I
change it?
Mm-hmm. And if so, how do I change it? And, we were just playing with this yesterday with, something that was showing up. And instead of going to a conclusion, like we were talking about answers before, instead of going to that place of like, this is this, we went to the question of like, okay, well, what is this? What do I do with it? Can I change it? And that's really a key question is, can I change this?
Yeah. And then if so, how is like the other part of it. But if you can't change it, then it's like, well, then what else is possible? Going into another question. Well, this is what's showing up. How can I have this show up with ease and joy and glory? What else is possible with whatever life in the universe has brought to me? Because it doesn't have to be doom and gloom, whatever. Even when you have lemons, you can make lemonade. I know it's a cliche old thing, but that's the truth of it. If you can't change the lemons, then what else is possible? What can you be in creationship with whatever showed up in your world?
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the word creationship, because before you were talking about destroying and uncreating our relationships, which for someone, if you haven't attended Access classes, that may sound kind of harsh or whatever. I'm going to destroy my relationship. What? When you destroy and create a relationship, you destroy and create everything about it that's unconscious, that's anti-conscious, that's not creative and generative and joyful. So when you destroy and uncreate the relationship, you also destroy and uncreate everything that's a limitation and a past reference point, like Hank was mentioning, so that you can go forward into a greater possibility and really ask questions like, wow, if I was really being me in this relationship, what would I choose today?
Ooh, that's a fun question. Yeah. And then also takes away any idea of what that day will bring, because we oftentimes will start comparing, well, this happened, all these days before. What if it was like that one movie, 51st Dates, where every day it's like brand new. I don't remember anything from yesterday. And what is possible today? And what amazing life could you live if you were to really be in that energy and not build it on the foundation of your past?
Yeah, and Gary Douglas recommends that movie all the time to people because it is about, waking up every morning and discovering, okay, well, who am I? And what grand and glorious adventures am I going to have? And who are these people around me today? Instead of going in with a conclusion of like, they're this or they're that, or they always do this or that, it's like, wow, like, who is this person today? You get to discover that afresh every day. Like, how much fun is that?
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's like there's a question. We got Mark
There's a
asking.
question.
Well, there is a ton of books, so it's like, where do we
So
even
many
start
fun
with this?
books.
May
Yeah.
either of you recommend any good books on this topic? I mean, any access book is going to give you the topics of it all being the question and everything. I would say my personal favorite, and I'll grab a link and post it in the comments, is Being You, Changing the World by Dr. Dain Heer, which is a great
Absolutely.
segue because in 10 days, there's the very first ever International Being You Day.
It's a holiday.
Yeah.
It actually really is a holiday.
Yeah. And Dr. Dain advocated to have this day created, and now it's going to be the first one. And if you go to nationalcalendars.com under the Being You Day, they even has like all these different things posted of like, how do you get the most out of this day, questions to ask. And there's resources on a website that they put up that all have about being you. But I would hands down do that or go through that book. And I recommend the Audible version. Dain reads it himself, so you get the energy of Dain.
Okay.
And I think that you get a little bit of a different experience when you're listening to it than if you're just reading it personally. Some people don't rather read the book, but either one is good. All the tools are there, regardless of if you read it or if you listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my go-to book with access, the book that I love is The Place. It's quote unquote fiction. It's written by Gary Douglas, and in the Audible version, he reads it himself. And it's just beautiful. It's again, fiction. If the world was a place of consciousness and possibilities, what would that look like? How would we engage with each other and the earth and the plants and the animals in our bodies? So it just is so beautiful. And it talks about creation in a very different way.
Putting this in the comments too. I usually give my Amazon affiliate link, but today I'm gonna put Dain's website. And the reason for that, Mark, is if you go there to look at the books and everything, he has a ton of free resources on his website. So I would definitely encourage you to poke around and see what else you might be able to discover on his site. But here is the link for that, for Dain's book.
Oh, there's the Baby Unicorn Manifesto, it's a kid's book, but I bought it because it's such a beautiful book about, what if we came into the world to people who were totally grateful for us, saw us as everything that we are, and actually desired for us to be happy, and all of us.
Now, I know Mark is joking about this, but he asked if they offer either of those as coloring books. So you don't offer coloring books, but you were in the energy of kids, Mark, because Heather was talking about the Baby Unicorn Manifesto, and here you are talking about coloring books. So they definitely do have books that are for children. And sometimes those books are the best. Like I know another author that I really enjoy is Neil Donald Walsh, and he wrote a book called Santa's God and a book, The Little Soul in the Sun, and both are just so great. And when they're written with taking out all the unnecessary fluff and buff for the ego and just get to the crux of like what really is the important thing here, I think everybody can really benefit from reading a children's book.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I loved about the Baby Unicorn Manifesto. It was like that warm, cuddly hug from the universe that it's like, wow, like what would it take for us to have more of that kindness?
And we have about 4-ish minutes left, so I'm going to throw up here that it's a final call for questions and comments. Man, this time goes by so fast. It's unbelievable.
So fast, yes.
And we do plan, we might be on tomorrow. Heather is actually going to be on a plane tomorrow coming out to Cleveland because we are having 5 days with Heather at the Emergency Being Center. So if you want to find out more about the stuff coming up, and if you're watching this and and it's after the class and everything, we have all the access classes are going to be at emergenceofbeing.com/possibility. So you can check those out. But this weekend in specific, she is doing bars on Thursday to become an access bar practitioner. And you don't have to have a business to be a practitioner. We had one person just take it for me last week that only was interested in learning it for the tools and for using it on herself, really. So you don't have to be going into it to, be in business for yourself or anything like that. It's a life-changing thing just by that. And then we also have the foundation, which is 4 days of access tools and energy processes and all kinds of fun things like that.
Yeah, and it's 4 days where you guys will get to run bars. I really hope people will run bars and body work during class, because access works whether you're laying on a table, relaxing and receiving. These classes are energetic as well as the words, and you can always listen to the recording later. I have slept through some moments of recent classes, so.
And I know Gary was telling a story once. He was teaching, I think it was a money class at the time, and one lady fell asleep, like literally slept through the entire class. And out of everybody in the class, she had the most change show up in her life. So what if when you are listening to this work, like I always have an access book playing when I fall asleep. Actually, I have an Audible book, and I have just one earbud in this ear, and I just listen to it as I fall asleep. But what if it takes down all the filters and all the things that you would use to resist receiving that information, because it's just going into your subconscious or other than conscious and starting to facilitate change? It's like sowing the seeds of change.
Yeah. And I mean, I notice when things just get lighter and more ease, joy, and glory, and it's like, wow, I didn't have to work. I didn't have to do anything, just receive that change.
And speaking of that, ease and joy, glory, that's the mantra of access. This is a great note to end on. Yesterday I had some stuff come up in my world that was really heavy. It was part of the bad and the ugly. And I actually went to the mantra and I just started saying it over and over again. And I found myself about 6 times in starting to laugh to myself. And it created such a sense of ease. Like really this tool, 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening. And best of all, do that so when things do show up that are like, you say this and it will shift the energy around the experience, and it just becomes so much easier. So what if all of life could come to you with ease and joy and glory? What energy could you be to actually enter into the space where this is true for you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What an amazing way to launch into the day today. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you, I believe, tomorrow. Maybe we'll even do a stream before the bars class. Maybe during the bars class, I'll be like, hey, we're streaming. Look at all the fun we're having. You see some of this energy.
Yeah.
Well, but we will see you tomorrow at same time, about 7 o'clock, and for a quick stream. If you have anything you'd like us to talk about, put it in the comments. And we'd love to make the future streams based on what's coming up in your world. And we can love to speak to that. We already have 2 requests from the group. From practitioners. We'll be doing relationships eventually, as well as conscious parenting. But I have to bring myself up to speed on some of the tools for that, because I don't know about. Maybe after foundation, I'll be able to dive into that.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. Fun. But until then, we'll catch you next time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today for the show. The Sonic Shaman is part of the Emergence of Being Contributor Network. Visit emergenceofbeing.com to learn about all the contributors and learn about our services and upcoming events. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. You can contribute to the show by supporting our efforts and sharing our content with those you care about and those who need it most.